Hello, my name is Mustafa, and welcome to my reader profile. I'll start off by talking about my reading philosophy. I believe that to be literate means that you are able to read and write anything with a message behind it, or it can mean that you can understand readable things. Readable things can be anything, like books, movies, music, and more. For a book to be good, I think that it needs to have a deep story that is comprehensible by readers, and it should allow readers to make their own interpretation of the story. Now we'll talk about my reading habits. I like to read books that have a story behind them that you really have to think about. I also really enjoy books with lots of excitement and adventure. The book I read this summer is called The Genius Wars, and it's the third book in the trilogy. The book series is about an extremely gifted child named Cadel, who is basically adopted by a therapist. The story is about how the therapist taps into the knowledge of Cadel and teaches him how to use his intellect. A lot of problems arise because of this, which makes it a really interesting read. The book is filled with adventure and it has a complex story, which makes it a really enjoyable book for me. I'll now go over my first reading memory. When I was very young, my mom would read me stories about Rumpelstiltskin, Snow White, and many other fairy tales. We had a huge book with a lot of really popular fairy tales, and at a certain point, I had pretty much memorized this book. Eventually, I would go through the book myself and figure out what each letter and word did and meant with my knowledge of how the fairy tale went. This is what really got me into reading in the first place. I feel like the stories I liked slightly reflected the books that I like now. Popular fairy tales like Rumpelstiltskin have a very clear moral or main idea, but for me as a kid, I really had to think to understand it. Now, I really enjoy trying to understand the main ideas of a book, just as I did back then. Now for the opposite. I'll talk about what I might read in the future. I think that in the future, I won't be reading a lot. I have other hobbies that I really enjoy, like playing basketball and playing video games. There are other uses for books too, like for work purposes. I might have to read in my career for emails and research, but not from a book most likely. Every now and then, I may read a book for my career if I find a very good one, or if I have to read it. Other than that, I'll probably only be reading a book if it gets recommended to me a lot by my family and friends. This is what I think about reading right now, but maybe sometime soon I'll start really enjoying reading again, and I'll read more for leisure in the future. To end, I'll be talking about if I think reading books is necessary to survive in modern society. In my opinion, reading books is not necessary to survive in modern society. This is because reading books is used for two main things: entertainment and work. Entertainment is not a necessity for survival, so I'll be more focused on work. For work, reading a book is not a necessity because there are alternatives like the internet. Books are a lot more inconvenient. With books, you have to find the book you want, go to a library or bookstore, then find the book in the library or bookstore, then look through the book for your information. With the internet, you can just Google your question and you will find your answer in a very short amount of time, eliminating the need to read books in modern day society. My name is Mustafa, and this has been my reader profile. I hope you've enjoyed.